It's my song! Let's sing it! It's gonna be fucking awesome! Come on! It's gonna be fucking awesome! You know the words! It's gonna be fucking awesome! That's it! Sing! It's gonna be fucking awesome! Yeah!
Hey, hi. It's Jesse Blaze Snider, the Coolest Geek Alive. How are you doing out there, my fellow Coolest Geeks? I'm doing okay. Still dealing with lots of little health things. About to go into the dentist tomorrow. I don't know what's going to happen. I got a hole in my sinus right now, and I'd thrown out my back last week. It's really been like just everything that can happen will happen. But I'm excited today to talk about one of my favorite movies of all time. What I think is just a truly underrated film. And I saw a little clip of Quentin Tarantino talking about it the other day somewhere. And I just felt extra sort of like lit up to talk about it because it's one of my favorite movies of all time. And I really think it's like one of the best sequels ever made and one of the smartest films ever made, and just a brilliant comedy, super subversive. I was talking about this the other day with some people. Shakespeare is another level of writing. And if you really evaluate the material of Shakespeare and then your average bit of material, let's say from Hollywood for even, just average it for like 1,000 years, what you're going to find the difference between Shakespeare and all the shit that they make is the majority of it is not particularly balanced. The one area that it's really not particularly balanced in is humor. I did an episode of this show, where I talked about the greatest book and the greatest film ever made, The Princess Bride, and I really, believe that. And one of the reasons I believe it is because The Princess Bride is so balanced. It's capable of being insanely dramatic and action-packed and dark and scary and all these things, but it's still capable of being funny. This is a great code that the Muppets cracked as well. Jim Henson had these, idiots performing various things that they weren't really as good as they, should have been to even try in the first place. And yet beyond laughing at them, we're able to cry with them, with these Muppets. And that only comes from balanced art. I'm a big advocate for balanced art. The big thing that the majority of any book or film or anything tends to be missing is comedy, humor, levity. Life is comedy all the time, just really, it's all about how you present it. So often you have an experience and it's harrowing and terrible, and then hindsight's 2020, from years later, now you're telling it as a funny story. I've got a great story about pooping my pants with a friend, and I should have handled the situation differently. And at the time, it was awful. It was like the worst thing that had ever happened to me. But like almost immediately, it transformed into a very funny story that I don't mind telling every now and then because it's so over the top. But it took me getting to the perspective of, oh my goodness, how many things could go wrong here? Like, once I got to that perspective on this pooping my pants incident, it became comedy, right? So what does that say about stories just in general? It's all really how you present them. And, and you can kind of go back and forth between, how you're presenting these things depending on the perspectives that you're giving. And, Gremlins 2 is a awesome example of that balance. With just lots of humor, on the humor side of things, but still capable of scaring you, still capable of making you feel nervous for the characters. I remember, I've watched it and now I just watch it as a cartoon. But at the time when I was watching it as a kid, I can remember moments where I was like really concerned about, the Phoebe Cates in the elevator with the Gremlins and oh my, and granted these characters, survive a lot of things that maybe they shouldn't necessarily have survived, but the stakes, everything feels scary, even though it never really goes past a certain point, which is wonderful and makes it like sort of a wonderful sophomore level horror movie for children. Now, the original Gremlins has this feature too, this great balance of humor and horror and, whatever other elements show up in the movie. There's a little bit of romance. There's a little bit of whatever. Now, if you haven't seen Gremlins 1, I do recommend you see it to set things up, even though I remember my parents telling me that I had seen Gremlins, but I didn't remember it. So when I saw Gremlins 2, I was kind of like, what the hell is this? And Gremlins 2 is the one that I've seen more often. I am a huge, huge, huge fan of Gremlins 2. And there is just so much to like about this movie, from great character actors doing some incredible work. People like Robert Ricardo, who's the computer on Star Trek Voyager, the doctor on Star Trek Voyager. He's also, if you don't know, he's Meg Mucklebones in the movie Legend with Tom Cruise and Tim Curry. Meg Mucklebones being that big green goblin that's played by Robert Ricardo. Robert Ricardo is an awesome actor, and he is great in this. Super unlikable, and he's basically eventually shackled to the female gremlin Greta, who is amazing. I'm going to go through various things in a second because I have like a list, but at the same time, I figure I'll just talk about it naturally to start it off. What is HelloFresh? With HelloFresh, you get farm-fresh, pre-portioned seasonal recipes delivered right to your doorstep. Skip trips to the grocery store and count on HelloFresh to make home cooking easy, fun, and affordable. That's why it's America's #1 meal kit. We all know home-cooked meals are so much better for you, but you don't always have time to pull it off. But with HelloFresh handling all the meal planning, shopping, and most of the prep, it's easier than ever to get dinner on the table quick and painlessly. No more endless recipe searching or spending money on a whole jar of spices for only a pinch. With HelloFresh, everything you need to make delicious meals comes right to your door, pre-portioned and fresh. Plus, the included step-by-step recipe cards make cooking simple. I don't know about you, but I hate waste. I love being able to cook myself or my family a meal, but the waste, man, the waste. I'm always having to throw away so much. Or what I do save eventually goes bad and gets thrown away anyway. But with HelloFresh, this is no longer a shame I carry. For free breakfast for life, go to HelloFresh.com/freecga. One free breakfast item per box while subscription is active. That's free breakfast for life just by going to HelloFresh.com/freecga. HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit. There's another actor whose name I'm forgetting right now, who plays Clamp, the owner of this building that, let me go back a second. So, the cool thing about this movie, because, both Gremlins and Gremlins 2 have that balance of humor and whatnot. The thing that makes this one even cooler is that this is, I said, one of the greatest sequels. Why is it one of the greatest sequels? Well, because it doesn't just regurgitate the first film. It makes everything bigger, but it makes everything bigger in an organic way that really makes things uniquely bigger this time around. And they do that in a ton of different ways, but one of the big ways that they do it is by framing this whole Gremlins film around the Clamp cable network building, or Clamp building. Basically, like, the Clamp empire has a lot of different pieces to it, and there's a lab inside the building, and they're said to be like tenants at a certain point, so you're not sure who's tenants and who's whatever, but he talks about having channels, and there's a Dracula character who has a Dracula, like a horror show that he's filming, and he ends up, because there's nobody in the building with a camera to film anything, so he gets on camera and he's filming for some of the Clamp News Network things. Now, the whole Clamp organization is that it is like the top flight technological thing. They do it better. They've got all of the elevators that talk to you and the fire alarm systems that talk to you. And Of course, this is all new technology, and even before the Gremlins come along, things are malfunctioning. And now, for those of you who don't, understand the simple lore of Gremlins, in the various wars, I think this has come from the idea that your engine was malfunctioning was attributed to gremlins. Oh, you had some gremlins that broke your engine, or screwed up your plane, or whatever it might be. So the gremlins, notoriously, like when you see them in the Warner Brothers cartoons, they're taking apart the plane with Bugs Bunny and all that stuff. Could it be gremlins? So these gremlins are in, when you see the first movie, they're taking apart the movie theater. And they're taking apart the tractor that belongs to the next door neighbor and driving it into the house. And they're making the technology that we have turn against us in various ways. So in this film, you end up getting this building that is like state of the art. And now that's going to get taken apart by these gremlins, which is a great setup for the gremlins, a great place to put the gremlins. Now, in a lot of remakes or sequels, films like this, where when they want to do something like that, like, hey, we want to move the location of the film from this sleepy town to this place. They're grown up, theoretically speaking, we could have them, give them a job anywhere. And like one of the first pieces of dialogue is like, yeah, I didn't want to be an artist anymore, or I ended up with a teacher I didn't like, and I decided another major, and I ended up over here. Or, yeah, I still draw on the side, but I decided I didn't want to do that professionally. Some piece of dialogue that essentially erases the character that the audience is aware of from the first movie in order to sort of replace them with this new person who would be more likely to be in this new location doing this new thing. Now, Joe Dante and the writers of this movie, which I didn't bring my phone over here. Hold on. All right, I got my phone. This is funny. He's not known for a lot. His biggest movie besides Gremlins 2 came after Gremlins 2 called Matinee with John Candy. Screenplay, story by. There was a TV series he worked on called Rebel Highway. But before Gremlins 2 is a movie I think fairly little known called Martians Go Home. I love that movie. It stars the dude who plays Uncle Randy or whatever from Christmas Vacation and European Vacation. The dude from Independence Day. It's actually a very funny movie, very clever. Martians Go Home. That's interesting. He doesn't have that much besides that. TV movie, some other things. A movie called Over the Edge in '79. I never heard of anything besides Martians Go Home. But he is, firing on all cylinders here. Obviously, Joe Dante has a part of that. These characters and the film was originally created by Christopher Columbus, who's now become known for the Harry Potter franchise and stuff, but, Rent and I'm trying to remember some of the movies that he's done. Scoob, The Christmas Chronicles recently, I Kill Giants. Is this movies more he's produced? Yeah, he's produced these guys. But he's made so many big movies. Go look up Christopher Columbus sometime if you're not aware of that he's a pretty big deal. But Joe Dante in particular is a really interesting filmmaker. And by the way, Chuck Jones directed all of the animation sequences that are in the movie at the beginning and at the end. I think there might be some in the middle too that were animated, like the electric gremlin and the shadows of the gremlins on the screen. Everything in this movie is so well done. I love this movie so much. And of course, Chuck Jones is one of the biggest names in animation directing for the Warner Brothers characters. And if you're not a big Warner Brothers cartoon fan, dude, I highly recommend. I'm gonna have to do a long show on that one day of just how wonderful and how many fucking great characters and just all the reasons why you should be a fan of that stuff. But in the meantime, let's talk about this. So let's see. What is some of the things that you might be aware of, dude? From He's been doing a lot of TV stuff recently, but let me see. I know there's some movies that I really like by him. Of course, he's now infamously known for Looney Tunes Back in Action, which is not the greatest movie ever. And he did that Small Soldiers movie, which was very disappointing to me, but I was very excited to see that at the time. He had something to do with the Rebel Highway TV series thing that the other dude was working on, and Matinee. And The Burbs, which is a fun one with Tom Hanks. Amazon Women on the Moon, I've never seen that. Inner Space, which is a fun one. Some Twilight Zone TV series episodes in the 80s. Gremlins. I guess, did he direct the first Gremlins? I guess he did, yeah, director's Gremlins. Twilight Zone, the movie. Police Squad, The Howling. Yeah, I love Police Squad. Rock and Roll High School. Yeah, I knew there were some movies by him that I really like. The Howling is a cool one. And then his first movie is called Hollywood Boulevard. Joe Dante's cool. He definitely has a certain sense of humor and whatnot. The clip that sort of led me to make this in the first place was of Quentin Tarantino, just talking about Joe Dante and what a unique voice he has and how very clearly that great voice of his comes out in this film. I talked to about some of the great character actors. Of course, there's a couple voice actors as well. There's Howie Mandel doing Gizmo, which is always fun. MTV, Rambo. Sometimes I can do a decent Gizmo. Tony Randall doing the voice of the Brain Gremlin. And then those character actors that I mentioned, it's John Glover. Yeah, I knew it was his name, but there's a lot of other Glovers now, and I was kind of blanking out on it. Plays Daniel Clamp, the president of the company. He's hysterical. He quietly delivers just like this amazing deadpan performance that's like sort of like so good and so like in the pocket that you don't even realize like how great it is until the second time you see it. And then the guy who plays Dracula is Robert Prosky, who plays Grandpa Fred, who's out there in a Dracula costume doing the thing. Sorry for the helicopter if you can hear in the background. He's excellent. And then, of course, you've got the great Christopher Lee as Dr. Catheter, which just, it's such an on-the-nose name, but it's Dr. Catheter. It sounds good, rolling off the tongue. There are others. I mean, the movie is just excellent in so many ways, and I'll probably just shift over to my notes now, and then I'll take it from there. We'll take it from there, my friends. All right, here I am at my notes. So this movie has a WB animation opening and closing, a custom cartoon. If you're a fan and you hadn't seen the cartoons in a while, and I was a big fan, and they have a Chuck Jones directed Bugs Bunny Daffy Duck cartoon at the beginning of the movie. And then during the credits, Daffy Duck shows up on the sides, and it's amazing. I don't know if the original voice of everything, whose name I'm blanking on right now, Mel Blanc, does everything. At the time, I don't know if he was dead or whatever, but it is so well done, and the ending is done, and Daffy Duck wants to ride the Warner Brothers logo, and he ends up crashing into the front of it and gets squished. It kills. It's so great, and it's the equivalent of having a cartoon, open these films as they used to in the old days, a little short in front of things, without there being a lot of time spent on it. And it's just like the perfect amount of time, just boom, 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 some great jokes, great physical gags, and then moves into the movie. And the movie in general has a really great pace. It gets going, pretty quickly, and maybe like just takes a minute to establish all of the things that need to be established for the rest of the film. But I mean, within like 15 minutes, we're moving along pretty good. And by a half an hour, you're like, wow, like there's just so much shit being thrown at the wall here. So let's see. Talked about Shakespeare and humor and balance. It's funny, in the beginning of the movie, there's just like a very simple metaphor that opens things up where they bring a television and a VCR and a remote control to play a video to the old man who you know from the first film, who's Gizmo's caretaker. And, basically, they're in this antique shop of all these, like, sort of, like, archaic, anti-technological type things, and in they bring this television and this VCR and play him this whole thing. It's just such a perfect setup to this world. And, I'm calling this, one of the smartest films ever made. The intelligence in the film really lies in the setup for everything. We were talking about bringing the main characters to a new space. You've got Zach Galligan's character, Billy Peltzer, and his, fiance or whatever, Kate Berenger, who are now working at this building. Nothing has changed for Billy, though, because he's working in the art department. He was an artist in the first movie. He was trying to get out of working at the bank. They were both working at the bank. And now she, too, is working in the building, but she's working in kind of a shittier job. She's like a hostess. She's giving people tours of this highly technological building that they're in. It's really special. It offers all these things. Downstairs there's a TCBY and, places to get food and coffee and stuff. And, this building has everything. It's the building of the future. So, them being where they are fits within the this building contains everything, and Billy is there because he's working in the art department, and she's there because she's followed Billy and she loves him, and they're trying to build a life for themselves. So it's very simple, it's very logical, and they don't have to change the character in any major way to make the story work. Now, as I already said, the guy Chris Glover or whatever Glover, John Glover, who plays Clamp, he's, oh my God, he deserves an award for this performance. It's so authentic. It's so authentic and aloof in the best way. He's that person who you're supposed to hate, but instead you just adore him because of the way he's playing it. And then his assistant, who's a Smithers type, is just definitely Smithers incarnate and so wonderful, played by Robert Picardo. The situations that they put them both in are just fabulous. And I mean, really, just this chef's kiss on this whole movie. It's awesome. And I'm probably going to build it up too much for some of you guys, but honestly, don't go in with some sort of let me see kind of attitude about it. Go in with a open mind of this is a truly fun movie that is balanced in all ways and really beautiful to look at, and just so well thought out and concise, and just it really is just such a wonderful flick. So I hope you'll throw aside the stiff upper lip that sometimes leads people to not enjoy Gremlins 2. It's a sequel. It's about a bunch of little guys. It's kind of a comedy. Dude, this shit is really, really, really fucking funny, and it builds conceptually on everything from the first film, the basic premise of the Gremlins characters, the basic thesis of the film. Technology working against you, kind of thing, and these mischievous creatures helping the universes to pay karma sometimes for people you don't like. So let's see. Creature effects. Now, the creature effects, I'm not sure. I'm pretty positive, and I'm going to look it up while I'm here. They were done by Rick Baker, and he's got a studio, Cinovation Studios. They took over from Chris Wallace, who I'm not really familiar with Chris in any big level, but the Rick Baker Gremlins. I mean, the redesign of Gizmo, which a lot of people didn't even, if you don't have a discerning eye, you won't see. But oh man, the Gizmo of Gremlins 2 is fucking adorable. The first wave of fuzzy gremlins are adorable and unique, all in their own way. Their monstrous transformations are great. The mainline monster gremlins are great. I'm going to talk about them all sort of individually because there's a whole bunch of layers of this thing. I guess I'll talk about it right now. First of all, in the first movie, all the fuzzy gremlins that came out of Gizmo were essentially just evil versions of him, and one that had a mohawk. In this film, there's 4 of them that come out. A goofy one, a stupid one, or I should say, like a rambunctious, energetic one, a stupid one, kind of like a positive but stupid one, and then like a negative but stupid one, and then a mohawk one. Each one of them, the two, the kind of the positive, negative ones, are modeled after Lenny and what's his name from Not To Kill a Mockingbird, of Mice and Men. Is supposed to be like the little guy who's ordering around the big guy. And then the wild one is called Daffy. And he kind of looks a little bit like Gizmo. And there's basically like a mistaken identity storyline that goes on in the bit. And Daffy's great. He's just silly and adorable and whatever else. Essentially, like, they've all taken on a little bit of different personality from the personality pool. And the Mohawk one is kind of evil incarnate. So when they show up in this movie, it's really cool and a lot more like, oh, wow, like a new team of X-Men bad guys has showed up or something like that. They each have individual character and gravitas about them. So then from there, these four, they turn into the monstrous versions of themselves, and each one of them now has their own gremlin persona, gremlin look, and it's awesome. Additionally, there's like 3 or 4 sort of versions of the mainline gremlin beyond the unique ones. There is the gremlin that the Brain character is, but he looks different when he puts on the glasses and the jacket and stuff. And he has a different a version of him that's similar with the like all the horns coming out of his face, but he's green. That's like another one of their puppets of the Gremlins. And then there's these ones that have sort of more like snake eyes a little bit more. They're like more like prominent, their eyes in the center of their face. And I think there's like 2 color versions of them. But these puppets, they give these puppets so much character. There's a company, NECA, a toy company, that's been putting out Gremlin action figures for a long time. I hate them because they're the wrong size. Like, I just want them in 6-inch scale so I can put them next to my action figures. But they have gotten so much life out of those background Gremlins characters because they got backgrounds, Gremlins characters who are dressed like Chippendale dancers and bartenders, and one who's dressed as the Phantom of the Opera. That one actually has like his own. He has his own mold of like the burnt-in face of his thing. But they've got them dressed as construction workers, and they've got one in a trench coat who's the Flasher Gremlin. There's all these different versions of the Gremlins who are these background characters from these scenes that have so much character in the moment that NECA's been able to sell people action figures of some of these same background Gremlins over and over again, and people are buying them because the characters inherent in the scenes and the puppetry that was delivered in the movie are that good. So the next level that you have of these Gremlin characters is from the lab in the movie. There's a lab that I guess they're renting space to based on the dialogue in the film that is headed up by Christopher Lee. And that's how Gizmo gets in the building in the first place. Clamp happens to be trying to buy that area of town to demolish it and tear it down, which leads to Gizmo getting out and sort of being, in that area. And one of the scientists who works in that building out on a discovery mission looking for animals, I guess, or whatever, finds Gizmo, and they bring him to the lab. And so you're introduced to Gizmo, and you're introduced to the lab, and there's a lot of interesting things going on in the lab. But the lab essentially brings forth a dozen great and memorable gremlins, unique gremlins from the thing. At the very first one that you end up seeing is a vegetable gremlin who drinks this vegetable medley thing, and his ears get all thin like lettuce, and he becomes this really bizarre vegetable gremlin. It's bizarre. And then you get the dude who eats drinks the brain juice and becomes the brain gremlin. And then he gives some sunblock to a bat gremlin who grows some wings. Later on, the Mohawk gremlin he gets the spider serum. There's an electric gremlin who ends up killing the main doctor, played by Christopher Lee, and threatening other people, and comes in handy at the end. There's a female gremlin who they call Greta, because he takes a switch your sex bit. The Phantom of the Opera gremlin comes from here because there's some acid that says "Do not throw in face," and one of the guys throws in the dude's face. Who am I missing? I think there's another one or two, but these all create these super, super unique gremlins for the film, and continues to just give this movie just so much to play with and so much character. It's awesome. Let's see. So what else we got? And just Rick Baker's Gremlins. Just they're all amazing. They're beautiful. They're puppets. I'm somebody who loves puppets. I'm a big Jim Henson fan and fan of the Muppet Show and whatnot. And when I was watching it today, I was feeling that more and more. That some of the reason why I like it so much is because I could feel and can see in certain ways like, oh, this is a puppet show. This is a great horror puppet show. The state-of-the-art building. So there's tons of great ways in which this movie breaks the fourth wall. The first movie was met with not to say silly criticism, but reasonable criticism about the main tenets of the Gremlins thing. So if you don't know, you're not supposed to get the Gremlins wet. If you get the Gremlins wet, they multiply. So just you get it wet, just keeps multiplying. More water, more. One of them jumps in a pool, it's all over, right? If they eat after midnight, they become these monstrous versions of themselves. So they stop being cute and fuzzy, and they become these monsters. And then you got to keep them out of the sunlight because it kills them, right? So there is a whole scene where this room full of security people who are, I'm sure, played by a bunch of comedians, who basically just tear apart all these rules. What if the gremlin gets something stuck in its tooth and it and then it falls out of its tooth later? It didn't technically eat that after midnight, but the thing that fell out of its tooth did. Or what if they're driving through an airplane and they hit a time zone? It's always midnight somewhere. So as these questions are being asked, the last guy to ask the question, he gets attacked viciously by a gremlin, and punched in the face. Comically, one of the gremlins balls its fist and punches him in the face, which is a great moment in the movie. There's so many great comedic moments in this movie. But you've got that. You've got them making fun of the contents of the movie within the movie. You've got the movie being about a cable network thing on some level, so that there is filming going on, people having to, behind the scenes of, filmmaking and whatnot, being a part of the vibe of the movie in the first place. And then you've got the movie literally stopping in the middle of itself because the gremlins have broken into the projector and they've stopped the movie. And then in the film version, you have Hulk Hogan threatening the gremlins to put the freaking movie back on for everybody, or he's going to come up there and rain down Hulkamania on everybody's ass. And then there's a different version of it that I think has John Wayne which is like the VHS home video version, which I used to watch all the time when I was a kid. I'm pretty sure it's John Wayne. It's just been a long time since I've watched that version. So all the fourth wall breaking is really clever, really fun, and just, again, adds to why I call this, one of the smartest films ever made. Yeah, we talked about the research lab, Splice of Life, and Christopher Lee heading up the lab. Different personalities. Different personalities from these puppets. Arrested. There's a great bit of writing, for me in the movie that's quite simple. Billy, the main character, Billy Peltzer, he gets arrested, and it's the next morning when he gets out. And we just skip through freaking 12 hours of who knows what would be happening onto the part of the movie that we would be interested in doing. That's how you do it, folks. Nice way to just move things forward in a great way. He gets arrested for trying to turn off the water in the building so that things can't multiply. Self-referential, makes fun of itself, punching him in the face. It's tying together many elements very naturally. Yeah, the humor is not like silly. Like, the humor does not negate the fear, the I don't know what you want to, the slasher elements, the horror elements. It doesn't make it not like, exciting and on whatever level. It really does keep it very balanced, and you do, recognize that kind of anybody could go at any time, but it's not quite so cutthroat of a film, which is great. It's really super fun. It's like all the horror thing without it having to be quite so dark. It's filled with cartoon sound effects, which are really great, and I probably didn't notice them as much at the time, but it just every good joke is punched by some bit of whatever in the background that's like seems like straight out of a Bugs Bunny cartoon. Let's see. We break the fourth wall with the critics. Yeah, okay. Alt home video scenes. Oh yeah, they even have the critics in there reviewing the movie, and they have like Leonard Maltin saying the movie sucks, and the Gremlins show up and strangle him. Lab Gremlins. We talked about alt home video scene. Information. Okay, yeah. The last thing that I want to talk about with it is just how lovingly filled with pop culture references it is. And I didn't get all of them, but I just jotted down a bunch of the ones that I was really just thrilled about. I mean, you get the music at the end. You've got the New York, New York, as done by the Gremlins, which is super duper fun. But right at the opening of the song, I think it's Fats Domino's. I'm ready. Where you got it's an old school like blues rock song, and you got Gizmo dancing to it. He tries to escape at the time. But the music is just great. Gizmo dancing to a really great upbeat rock song. Then there's a moment earlier in the movie when Gizmo gets a hold of the controller and he flicks the channel. I told you they brought the TV and the VHS or whatever, and he puts the channel on to Rambo, and he's watching First Blood. I think it's First Blood. It might be Rambo 2 or whatever what it is. Some little minor references to the chipmunks. There's monkeys that get loose in the lab, and of course their names are Theodore and Alvin. When the bat gremlin leaves the Warner Brothers, the lab, it crashes through the wall and leaves a perfect Batman logo shape. You've got Hulk Hogan in his yellow and red. Is yellow and red? Yellow and red. I think that's right. Just classic Hogan yelling at Gremlins. And then a great reference to Marathon Man at the end. I mean, there's tons of just little references and things going on in the background when you get into some of these big scenes with these puppets. I mean, Rick Baker just outdid himself in every single way. I have been, for my whole life, waiting for a follow-up sequel to Gremlins 2. I don't think we'll ever get it. I've stayed away from the recent animated thing because I'm not... I don't want to be let down. I don't want the thing that I love to become something that I don't really love so much anymore because they did some terrible job on the new bit. If I got a chance to work on Gremlin 3, if I could continue from Gremlins 2 with Gremlins 3, I'm going to get a hold of those license and make some comics because that would be so fun. Gremlins 2, man. Gremlins 2 is so good. Yeah. What are final thoughts on Gremlins 2? Final thoughts on Gremlins 2 are don't let anybody tell you that Gremlins 2 is not fucking awesome. Like defend that shit. I know it seems difficult to defend because it's like this goofy little Gremlins movie, but it's not, Jesus, the work of Rick Baker on those puppets is so well done. The puppetry, the character that comes through in all of the stupid Gremlin characters, it's insane. They're not real. And they're real as can be, the NECA's ability to keep making toys around all the little variations of the Gremlins is a testament to how well performed they are. And just everything is just set up in the best way to have the characters be not overstaying their welcomes
and, you know, getting out of the way for the Gremlins to terrorize and do all the things that we want to do. I mean, it's really like, it's just a movie that's so aware of itself. It's so aware of what it is. It's having fun with what it is. It's making fun of what it is. It's making fun with what it is. And it just, across the board, I really think it's one of the greatest sequels ever made, one of the smartest movies ever made, and one of the greatest movies of all time. So, yeah. That's all I have to say, really, about Gremlins 2. I recommend Gremlins 1 as well. Gremlins is great, and, you know, a lot of people who don't have my sensibilities will tell you that Gremlins is the better movie or whatever. I really think that on so many levels, all the things that we're talking about right here, if you really loved Gremlins, I really think that Gremlins 2 continues to build upon that world in the way that somebody who really loved Gremlins 1 wants to see. I think if you thought Gremlins 1 was great, but it's not necessarily changing your life or anything, it wasn't something that you really were excited about thinking about. I was excited about thinking about Gremlins. And it was fun to think about. There was a whole bunch of like silly concepts and interesting things about it that made it fun. And they really get to the heart of all the interesting things about Gremlins that made it fun in the first place and deliver what I have to say is a total escalation of the thing that is just new and special in all sorts of different ways. And everybody just delivers great performances and it moves along at a great pace. And the fucking Creature Shop special effects are awesome. And fuck, man, what more do you want? Like, in this day and age, Gremlins 2 like puts like everything to shame. It's fucking amazing. It's amazing, and I have no shame about loving Gremlins 2. There, I said it. If you're not listening to my music show, All Your Favorite Bands Suck, you should be. If you're not listening to my Esoteric Wisdom show, Everything They Don't Want You to Know, you should be. All Your Favorite Bands Suck is every Monday. We just put out an Everclear episode that I recorded like a couple months ago, but it never got released somehow. But we've got like 50 bands so far almost that we've done episodes on. And it's just a show all about the bands and why I love them. And my Esoteric Wisdom show, you'll have to kind of go and find that out. But, you know, exploring universal laws and hermetic principles and things like that. Super fun. Things I love to talk about. Anyway, I love you guys. I just watched The Penguin. I thought it was really great. I'm going to be doing like a little coolest pick or, I guess coolest pick for it on Saturday. And yeah, I hope I'll see you again next Wednesday on another fucking awesome episode of the Coolest Geek Alive. Love you guys. Peace. You've been listening to Coolest Geek Alive with me, your host, Jesse Blaze Snider. Don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe for more excellent geek culture content. Thanks for listening.
It's my favorite part. Isn't it heavy? I played that. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Coolest alive. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Stay with your tribe. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Revenge of the Geeks. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Week after weeks. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Laughing with you. It's gonna be fucking awesome. And crying sometimes too. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Spelling it out. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Making you shout. I'm a genius. I've got lyrics coming out me bum for days. You like that? It's a kazoo solo. I played that too. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Talking some shit. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Living your shit. My voice is fucking awesome. Food in our mouth. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Get in the mouth. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Tell all your friends. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Call right or text. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Raising the bar. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Straight to the stars. It's gonna be fucking awesome. It's starting soon. Straight to the top. Passing the moon. It's gonna be fucking awesome. On with the show. going to be fucking awesome. Fucking awesome. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Just wait. You'll see. You'll all see.
You'll all see. The podcast playground. Hooray!